Welcome to The Fight with Teddy Atlas, presented by Dynamic Striking. I'm Ken Rideout, joined as always by the voice of combat sports, the great and busy and skinny Teddy Atlas. Teddy, how you doing? Busy weekend.
Yeah, good. You know what? Before we go into a little chatter, human chatter, bar talk, if you will, like two guys sitting at the bar talking to our people out there, fans that we appreciate and we care about, I just want to do something a tiny bit different and just obviously more solemn and serious, where I want to just send out our condolences and prayers to all of our fans over in the UK for the loss of their Queen Elizabeth II. She was obviously a great and enduring monarch who represented her country and her people with both dignity and strength for 70 years. So God bless the Queen and the people of England. I wanted to just say that from all of us to all of our people over there.
Yeah, she had the Queen had a good run, I'll tell you that. If we could all have a run, I think she was 96.
Yeah,
right?
96, 70 years as a monarch.
That's a good run.
I mean, and couldn't have done it better with more class, as I said, more dignity and more strength. During difficult times, wars, all the things that a great leader has to deal with. And she dealt with it all and dealt with it in a magnificent way. So I just want to get that done, get down to other stuff that's obviously in a different light and not as serious or as sad. Still at 28 pounds. That's sad because I want to be beyond 28. But again, I love to come on here and say to all fans out there, hey, I'm at 30 pounds, my targeted weight, and I'm going to keep going. But then I'd be lying, and we don't lie. So I'm still at 28, stuck a bit, need to bed down a little bit more. I will. And need to have maybe some more athletic greens sent to me, so I can get through those periods where I need a little more nutriment when I'm eating less, which I'm doing. And also, Ken, I just wanted to say sorry for the Patriots. You guys didn't start. You didn't start the season off the way you wanted to, and so I'm. I want to send out my little bit of thoughts for that.
Thank you.
They're not that powerful, but a little bit. I'm not too sad for you, New England Patriot fans. I think you had plenty of success over the last decade and a half or whatever it's been. It's amazing what losing a guy named Tom Brady will do.
It really is highlighted by what has happened to them since he's left. And I mean, everyone knows he was great, but the fact that he left and the Patriots have just been barely scratching, praying to make the playoffs every year versus, we would always wonder, can they go undefeated? It's just a crazy turn of events. And but then to go down to Tampa Bay, who was arguably a doormat for the longest time, and win a Super Bowl with them, I mean, all joking aside, it just speaks to the guy's greatness. And the fact that he was drafted 199th and his body when he got drafted, I mean, look, he'd be the first to admit he looked a mess. He was soft and doughy. To think that guy could transform himself into what he's become, but it also highlights that, like with boxing, you don't have to look like an Adonis or a bodybuilder. At the quarterback position, for me, that's like, to your point about boxing, I'd say 75 to 80% of that guy's job is intellect. There's a million people that can throw a ball a country mile and can fire it and throw it in there. But knowing when to throw, where to check down, having played quarterback in college, not very well, I can tell you that what he does it's mind-boggling. It's like watching a savant on an Excel spreadsheet, building financial models or something. You're just like, this guy's operating on a different plane intellectually. And I think that that's the case with Brady, is like, if he had the athletic ability of Deshaun Jackson or one of these kids. Is that his name, Deshaun Jackson for Baltimore?
Yeah.
Those kids. You get that kind of athleticism with Brady's brain. Oh my God, that's like I mean, look at what Brady did with his body, and he'd be, like I said, he'd be the first one to say it's not necessarily the athletic.
He might not be as good if he had that kind of athleticism.
That's a good point.
You know.
Yeah.
You kind of fortress yourself around what you have and fortress what you don't have. And being that he didn't have the athletic ability, he had to make himself into a more cerebral guy. He had to make himself into a calmer guy on the field where he slowed everything down and could see everything, where it was moving slow for him while it was moving fast for others. He had to concentrate on those abilities and maybe even bring those abilities to the surface that wouldn't have been brought to the surface if he just had the athleticism. See, there's a lot of fighters sometimes, Ken, they're cursed with the great, great gift of power and that kind of ability that very few people get, where they don't develop other things that you're talking about, the cerebral things, the technical things even, quite frankly. And they depend too much on just the power. And if they didn't have that power, they may have developed more. They wouldn't have that power. They wouldn't have been great in that area. I give you that. But there's other guys that don't have the power and they become great in other areas because they have to. They cannot take anything for granted. They can't sleep on anything. They have to burn the midnight oil, if you will, to get better in those areas where sometimes, we got great ones who can punch, don't get me wrong, and can do other things. But sometimes it can act like a curse rather than the gift that it's meant to be, because you get lazy on the other things. You don't get forced to develop the other things. The dependability traits, characteristics of being, tougher, because you got to be tougher when you can't punch, because now you got to endure. You gotta be there for the long haul. When you can punch, you don't have to endure sometimes. You get rid of guys. You have that great eraser. You don't have to be there at the end. You don't have to go through, hell and high water to get to a victory sometimes. So there's something to be said for that. But at the end of the day, some of the fans reach out to me and they said for me to ask you to please, you're laughing already, for you, my sense of humor, to please stop burning those Brady jerseys where you are, because it's causing an environmental problem and an effect where people are going to have to report you. They don't want to. They like you. They love the show, everything else. But they're going to have to, because it's causing smog problems. So did you burn?
I would never burn anyone's jersey. I love Tom Brady.
The other thing I want to do, I know you wouldn't. The other thing I want to do is I want to just welcome back our producer Rob from his delayed honeymoon in Italy for 2 weeks. They had a great time. We saw some pictures, beautiful scenery there, and they do make quite the couple when you see the pictures. They do, and he still kept doing all the work for us and for the show while he was there. So I know I appreciate it. I know you do, and I know the fans do. So I just wanted to get all that out there. And I'm ready to go. We got a lot of stuff to cover. I know I filled our agenda here. I just kept hitting you guys up with more stuff I wanted to cover. Quick stuff, flash stuff, fun stuff, some of the preliminary stuff. But we'll get to that later. For now, lead us into the steak and potatoes, if you will, of what happened this weekend.
Will do. Before we jump in, I just want to give a quick shout out to one of the fans and actually a friend of mine from way back. When I started boxing at the New York Athletic Club, there was another guy there called Frank Shattuck. He's a tailor. He makes one-off custom-made suits, and he moved up to upstate New York. And he knows that I like all kind of Irish-themed stuff. And he didn't ask me for anything, but he sent me this Irish cap. And I would be remiss if I didn't say to Frank Shattuck, thank you, Frank. I love this cap. You're a gentleman. He didn't ask me for anything. He's not looking for an ad. It's not that kind of business. But I just wanted to say thanks because I sincerely appreciate it. And I love this hat. And my kid said, my oldest son said to me, he said, Dad, you look like kind of like a gangster, like a guy who would have a gun. I said, yeah, well, I got two of them.
Yeah, in your arms, you're built. But I would tell you, kids, yeah, but you look like an old-time fighter. That's what you look like.
Thank you.
You know what I mean?
So I look like,
yeah, you look like Jack Dempsey.
Frank said that did you just say Jack Dempsey?
Jack Dempsey.
That's what he said to me. He said, Ken, put this hat on. I promise you look like Jack Dempsey with the hat. So there's Rob for a screenshot.
No, it's beautiful. You look like Jack Dempsey. And with the sidewalls, with your hair cut short, that's Jack Dempsey all the way. It really is. Yeah. And you know what you look like a little bit too? The old movie. I always like to throw in movies there. The fans know that. And from what I hear, they enjoy it, I hope. But what was the name of that movie? It was with the guy that played a lot of tough guy things. What was his name? Charles Bronson. Charles Bronson in Hard Times. I think it was Hard Times. It's an old movie. Rob might find a clip of it or a still of it, but you look a little like him. He was a fighter. I think it was Hard Times, Charles Bronson, and he played a fighter, an underground fighter. They used to fight these underground fights, bare-fisted, bare-knuckles.
Yeah.
And he was the man, he was the guy. And you look a little like him. Don't fight any bare-fisted fights, though.
Well, I just wanted to say thanks to Frank, and again, I want to stress it's not an ad. He didn't want anything. He's gonna die. He listens to every single episode. But for other people, please don't send me stuff to get it on the show. These are like organic things. He's a good person. He sent this to me, and I said, people will probably want this thing. He makes suits, but he's like, hey, I had this extra fabric. I made this suit for you. I know you like them, so I made this hat. So anyway, thank you, Frank. Teddy. Whoo. Holy drama. Did we have some drama over the weekend? My goodness.
Yeah, I mean, the show could have got canceled. Give him credit. Give Dana credit.
Easily.
Give all the fighters credit.
Of course.
Give everybody so much credit.
Everyone.
I mean, the first time, I believe I'm right here, Ken, first time in the history of the UFC that the press conference had to be canceled. It was dangerous. He came right. Dana don't mince words. Like him or don't like him, he don't mince words. He came right out. He said, it's dangerous. He said it's dangerous back here. He's a tough guy too. So he doesn't throw those words around loose.
You're dealing with a tough sport when they're like, yeah, guys, it's too dangerous to have the combatants in the same room right now. We'll just have to wait till we lock them in a cage and let them fight essentially to the death or till someone surrenders. But basically, for those who don't know, and I'm sure at this point everyone does, at least the people listening to this show, but Chimaev, Nate Diaz comes in. They were at 170. I think he can come in at 171. Nate weighs in 171. Chimaev comes in at 178 pounds or something in that context. He missed weight by 8-9 pounds. I mean, he said after the fight with Rogan on the interview that the doctors made him stop cutting. But, I mean, 8 pounds... There has to be more to the story. I mean, everyone who follows the sport and knows what's up knows you don't miss by 8 pounds unless there's something seriously wrong. But the fact that you're a big star when the UFC... Let me give you my feeling
real quick on that. I think he overlooked Diaz. I'm just telling you. I think he overlooked him. I think he took him lightly. Diaz is great. He's a legend. He's an icon. We understand all of that. Toughest as they come. Like all these guys, and he's as tough as anybody, and he's got a legendary following, all of that. But at this point in his career, and with his style and his abilities, this fight was didn't figure to be good for Diaz against Chimaev. It was his last fight on the UFC contract. It would have been a hard way to go out. Very difficult, very difficult. And I'm saying that, and that's probably an understatement. But I believe that Chimaev thought the same thing and overlooked him and maybe didn't do certain things right and got heavy. And do I believe, I'm not calling anyone a liar, but do I believe that a doctor told him that you got to hydrate and it's dangerous for you? I guess I have difficulty.
With 8 pounds to go, Teddy, what was he cutting from 200?
I think I have some difficulty, to your point. I think I have some difficulty believing that. And I think that more expert people in this business, like Chael Sonnen, the great Chael Sonnen, who's a legendary UFC fighter, as tough as they come. He didn't believe it either. All right, he didn't believe it either. He put up something that gets right to the point. That's pretty funny actually, but gets to the point that he didn't believe it. So take it from there, Ken, and that's what. But I needed to.
Yep. So. Yeah, no problem. So Chimaev misses it egregiously, and my God, that's when the festivities began, or the turmoil began, because when he missed it, naturally the crowd was like, what? They're booing him off the stage, and I mean, you talk about turning heel and digging in. He flipped off the crowd, F you, Chechnya is here, I'm going to kill your boy, I'm going to do this, like... He didn't respond well to getting booed. For sure.
Let's qualify that. Let's put some on. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's his brand. That sells. That goes with his image. No different than Mike Tyson when he said, I will eat your children. I mean, that's not a nice thing to say. I will eat your children. It's not, you could pick something better. But again, it was part of the brand. It was part of the selling point. It was part of his trademark. It was part of what people look for and expected. And, the scary part. The scary part of, Freddy Krueger coming out again, that it's got to be scary. Otherwise, you're not going to, what are you going to watch Freddy Krueger for Halloween 10 if it's not scary? So, and Tyson said, I eat your children. Why would you talk to me that way when I will kill you for that and I will eat your children? So, along those lines. So there's a precedent for it. And who knows? Maybe these guys get it from guys like Tyson, and Tyson gets it from guys before him.
I think that there's an element of that, Teddy, but I also think, and I know you've seen this personality type, we all have, where some people just have that personality where the minute that they feel cornered, they behave like a wild animal, flailing and wild, acting irrational, and just going crazy and like super defensive, like F you. It's just... everyone has that fight or flight mechanism. Their flight even becomes part of the fight, where it's like, oh, you backing me into a corner? Watch how irrational I can be.
But I think it's part of his branding right now. But yeah,
for sure.
But I get, because look, he's a monster. He's the next Khabib. This guy is a relentless monster, a force. Yeah. And if you're talking about hurricanes and stuff like that, you want to feel wind. You don't want to be saying, oh, what a nice day it is out, and look how sunny it is. Oh, it's a tepid day. No, it's a hurricane. It's a freaking wind out there. Yeah, there's a tornado.
There's cars being launched.
Yeah, not Ken's cars, because they're buoyed down
in the basement.
They're probably put into one of his spare rooms. Somewhere in a secure area.
Teddy, we're going to get into this, but how bad do you want to see someone like Chimaev and Colby Covington at 185?
Oh, my goodness.
Because it doesn't seem like 170 is in the rear view. I mean, I don't think the UFC should even give him another fight at 170. That there has to be some recourse. You can't just show up 8 pounds.
Well, that's the problem with right now. We got to get into breaking the fight down. But Ken, that's the problem, that you can't trust him. As far as what weight he's going to make, you don't know where to make a plan with him. See, that's the problem.
Exactly.
Everything else ain't a problem. I mean, put him in with somebody. But what plans do you make with him? What can you depend on? You can't depend on him. What if he comes in heavy again? You don't know. Right now, I believe that he wins the welterweight title with Edwards. I just do. I love Edwards. He's been on our show, and he's He's great. He's great. And he just pulled off a huge upset. And he deserves all the credit, and he deserves everything that comes with that. And I hope he gets it. But right now, Chimaev, for me, would be a favorite over him. But if you start talking
about... What about versus Usman?
I think he's a favorite over Usman. I know that's extraordinary.
Really? Interesting.
But I do. Now, Usman would be a little different, though. A little different. But... I still feel that way. The other thing is, it depends on what weight realms, like we just touched on, you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, if you go up to Adesanya, middleweight. Now that's a different story. Now that's a little different. That would be interesting. I would like to see that. That would be interesting. Different styles, different athleticism in different ways. Much different ways. The athleticism for Chimaev, physical strength, just so technically sound on the mat. Good striker too. Adesanya, great striker. Different kind of athleticism, explosive, fast, speed, elusive, whole different, two different contrasting guys. Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali in their primes. That kind of difference. So
I just can't see the UFC giving him a shot at 170 when you miss weight by 8 friggin' pounds. Like, let's say hypothetically he does get it, wins the title. Now you're going to be on eggshells every weigh-in that he might miss weight. The champion might miss weight. That's like something you can't have.
That's the point I'm bringing up. So how does Dana deal with that? Dana figure it out. But yeah, that's
good problem.
It's
a good problem to have for Dana to have that kind of talent, because even if he's going to lean into being a heel that much, look, you need good guys and bad guys. Vince McMahon built a whole network, built a whole organization around good guys versus bad guys. It isn't even real and people pay to watch. So for Dana, this is a marketing dream as far as I'm concerned to have Chimaev. Whether you love him or hate him, people like Muhammad Ali said, half the people are paying because they love me, the other half are paying because they want to see me lose. But let's get down to the fight because we've got a ton of stuff to cover.
No, we got a good card here, so to speak, to cover. So go ahead.
Hell yeah. So Chimaev gets a last-minute replacement. He can't make the fight with Diaz. Ends up being the best gift Diaz ever got.
Like,
I like Nate.
Oh my goodness.
I like Nate, and who knows? You just never can count him out. They did that against McGregor. 2 completely different animals, I know, but they had written him off against McGregor, and he chokes him out. But Nate gets, as far as I'm concerned, he's that's a much better send-off for him to get a win.
No doubt.
Tony Ferguson, a name. But now Chimaev gets thrown in with Kevin Holland. And to your point about the press conference being canceled, it was canceled because Kevin Holland's team and Chimaev's team got into it backstage, pushing and shoving. It always surprises me when guys do this stuff and run the risk of blowing a fight. You want to fight me? Cool. We're going to get in a cage.
They're fighters.
Yeah.
It's kind of like being surprised. That
when an attack dog when a junkyard dog bites an intruder.
Yeah,
that's what they do.
Or that funny skit. And listen, it wasn't funny what happened. Obviously, those 2 entertainers, those 2 magicians, Sigmund and Freud, one of them got hurt seriously. But afterwards, Chris...
Siegfried,
I'm sorry. And
Sigmund Freud was the
he was smarter. He was a little smarter. Smarter than me. That's obviously, for sure. But, obviously, Chris Rock, who I think is just hilarious, and he made a joke. He made a joke about that when he said, people made a big deal, saying, "Oh, the tiger went crazy." Like you're talking about the fighter, like Chimaev. Yeah, they went crazy. They went. The tiger went crazy, and then he turns around and he says, "Chris Rock put it into." Tough and sad under the circumstance, but true perspective. He goes, the tiger didn't go crazy. When the tiger was crazy, when they had that little hat on him riding around a tricycle, then the tiger was crazy. But when the tiger bit somebody, the tiger went tiger. that wasn't the tiger going crazy. That was the tiger going tiger. And so Chimaev didn't go crazy. Or whoever, or Holland, or any of them. That's the fighters being fighters. Being fighters.
No, you're right. You just, but all joking aside, you do expect them, guys. Come on, don't blow the friggin' card. Like Conor, when he threw that hand truck and knocked out, I think it was Michael Chiesa, put glass in his eye. You can't.
Out of control.
I know exactly what you're saying, but you can't act like a child. So
I get it.
Anyway,
but that's why you gotta have. And Dana said, you know what? Basically, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me twice. Shame on me.
Fool me twice, shame on me.
I mean, basically, that's what he was saying. Dennis said, it'll never happen again. We were caught short. We never had to have this much security for a press conference. We never had to, and we were caught short. But we'll never be caught short again. So, again, when you talk about that incident, that happened with the thing being thrown into the bus, by Conor McGregor and all that stuff, which really did get dangerous. There's no doubt about it. But again,
I mean, Chessa couldn't make his fight.
Again,
Glass in his eyeball.
you're dealing with fighters. You're dealing with very tough guys, volatile guys. Guys that are ready to erupt, can erupt, from tough backgrounds. And you know what? You're in a tough business. You're in this business, and you gotta take the proper, precautions. And Dana knows that, and that means have security. Have security. And again, they normally do, and they normally have. But this time they did get caught short. And as Dana said, the next time there won't be a next time, because there'll be plenty of guys there ready to disarm it. And I'm sure there'll be different rules now as far as who you allow in an entourage to come to a weigh-in, because
that's a good point. You don't need 20 guys
20,
with you. How about just
20
a trainer?
Wouldn't be bad. From what I hear, the numbers were like 50 for one of them. I believe Diaz was somewhere around 48 or 50, and I believe the number for Chimaev was like 30 something. So you're talking about almost 100 people. I mean, 100 people that are all involved or around tough guys, and they're coming into this weigh-in. I mean, is that a combustible, dangerous? Yeah, it is situation. So there'll be, like I said, I think the rules will change too. Besides having more security, you won't be allowed to come in. You won't be able to show up with 50 guys.
The fact that they were able to get all this done, I just love to know what the real numbers were in terms of what they had to pay each guy to make this happen, because this cannot have been cheap. But hey, they're not short on cash over there. So anyway, they match up Chimaev with Kevin Holland at a catch weight, I believe 180, and Chimaev just comes in and completely overwhelms him, runs in, attacks him, drags him to the ground, tries 3 or 4 different chokes. I think he got him at the end with a Darce or an anaconda.
He's smart. He's not just tough. He's not just tough and fast and strong. He's smart.
Got him with
he's technically
he got him with that. Got him with that Darce choke. And usually I always say, and again, like I don't profess to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I don't know all the techniques, but I know enough. And it's very, very difficult to choke a wrestler. Khabib, guys like that, and Kevin Holland's a wrestler, Colby Covington, those types of guys, Kamaru Usman, it's very hard to choke them. It can happen, but it ain't easy. They'll almost wait till they're out.
Khabib made a living out of it, and this guy is a little bit in the mode, maybe a lot, maybe not a little bit, in the mode of Khabib, I believe, anyway.
So Chimaev gets him eventually in this Darce, and they were going, and Holland was doing everything he could, making all the right defensive moves, seemingly, and it was just too much. The one thing that I want to get your perspective on, though, is I thought that if Kevin can survive this first round, I mean, look, humans are humans. You're not going to get someone who's like going to be able to go at 100 miles an hour for the whole 5 rounds. They're strategic with their energy, but this was just energy, adrenaline dump seemingly. And I was thinking, like in the Gilbert Burns fight, he got lumped up a little bit, Chimaev. He took shots and he proved he's tough. But point is, like at points he was like, it looked like his tank was getting low. I was
but
just
he behaved
man,
like a champion when he had to. That's
100%.
When his back got put against the wall when the test came. I remember tweeting after the second round. I said, look, we know what, I think it was the second, whatever, but before the last round. It was a 3-round fight, I believe. I believe it was anyway.
On the Gilbert Burns fight, yeah.
So I remember tweeting, just confirm that for me, but I remember tweeting that we already know what Khabib has on the outside, his skills. Now we're about to find out what he's got on the inside. And we did. He knew how to behave like a fighter, like a champion, like a guy who got tested, like a guy that was dealing with the moment, with resistance. I always say, I have a saying, I should trademark it. A fight's not a fight until there's something to overcome. Until then, it's just it's a exhibition. It's a physical exhibition of your abilities, your talents.
Yeah,
But-
that was a 3-round fight with Gilbert Burns. He got the decision. By the way, let me clarify one thing. Holland, I know Holland's not a wrestler. He's a jiu-jitsu guy, but I think of him as a strong grappler. And he was doing well while he was getting choked for a minute there. I thought he was. And he got choked out. But I thought if he could just survive and see, I want to see where Chimaev's tank is after this. Like, burn. I mean, it was so energetic and so like frantic out of the gate. I was just wondering if maybe with all the hype and all the shit that had happened, if maybe he was going to get an adrenaline dump. But sorry, I just wanted to clarify that. But keep going. I'm dying to hear what you thought.
Here it is, Ken. I'm going to differ with you on one thing, and I get it. You're saying what most fans would say. I don't think it was frantic adrenaline. I think it was well planned and premeditated. I think it was part of his genius, part of his ability, part of his overall package of skills and why he can be great and has the potential to be great, he being Chimaev. I think that he wanted to have a sensational impact on this show, especially after what happened. But I believe he planned it out. He planned on catching Holland by surprise. And you know what? He did. They say protect yourself at all times. You can never... You want to be calm in the ring, but you can't be too relaxed. You can't take anything for granted. You can't take your mind off your concentration for a moment. And I think just for a moment, just for a split moment, Holland almost looked like he was going out to touch gloves. But for a moment, I think that Holland thought he was going to have a second to get into it, to get into his rhythm, to get into the fight. And he didn't expect Chimaev to come at him that fast, that quick, close the gap that fast.
Completely agree. I think he thought he was going to touch gloves.
I agree.
Chimaev ain't touching.
That's what I'm saying. And I think it was planned. I don't think it was just an adrenaline, dump. I don't think it was frantic. I think that was well planned, well controlled by a genius fighter. A young genius fighter who might become a old genius fighter. He might become an OG, a great one. But time will tell. But right now he's on that path. And I think dealing with the Burns fight, how great is Burns now? How do we got to look at Burns now as far as how good he is? But as far as dealing with that fight, I think that kind of put him over the top. I think that forged him. It's like he already had a sword of good steel, and then he forged it into molten steel with the Burns fight, and that just solidified him in the mental areas, in areas that you need to fight the greater fighters, to go to the next stages of your career where it's beyond just athleticism, beyond just physical strength, and I think the Burns fight did that and helped him in that, forged those areas.
Definitely.
And I believe, as I said, that he said I could catch this guy by surprise. He saw it, he reacted to it, and he did. He caught Holland, taking nothing away, but he caught Holland by surprise. And once he got into Holland was spending too much time trying to get into the fight, trying to defend it, trying to level things, trying to stop.
He was trying to almost rationalizing, all right, let me just find my groove here. Like he was almost like talking to himself, like, let me get my range. I'll do this. And this guy was like, blitz.
Once he got into him that way, and he had him, fighting for his life to survive. He had him. It's kind of like a ship that's going down, taking water in. You can't get rid of the water fast enough, and that's kind of what it was.
It's exactly what it looked like.
And he kept him that way. He kept him in that defensive mode mentally and physically. He didn't allow Holland to unravel himself, to untrack himself. And and then of course he got the finish. But that's, for me, that was ingenious. That was planned. That he just, he never allowed the guy. We always talk about, you hear trainers talk about this, Ken, and you hear commentators say it. And a lot of times people don't know what they mean. And I think you got a little bit of a lesson on that, or a little bit of a sort of an explanation of that, where people would say the fighter's got to get into his rhythm. He's got to get into his rhythm. And that's exactly what I think you saw happen. That Chimaev never allowed Holland to get into his rhythm. And he was fighting to get to that rhythm, and he could never get to it. Never. Because he broke his freaking strings on his guitar. If he was a guitar player, he broke the string, and he just didn't let him get into the rhythm, or he broke his fingers so he couldn't play the guitar anymore. Whatever.
Teddy,
but
you like the movie reference. Remember the movie Animal House when the guy is singing the song with the guitar about I bought my girl a cherry that had no pit, and John Belushi goes over, takes his guitar and smashes it apart and hands it back. That's what I thought when you said he broke the
that's
strings.
a good one.
Chimaev smashed his guitar apart and handed it back to him. Thanks for coming.
There it is. Yeah, look, I tweeted before the fight. Did a lot of tweeting. A lot of people responded to the tweets. People seem to look forward to my tweets on Saturdays when we do either the boxing or the UFC. And we have a tweeting army out there, it seems like. And I appreciate all my guys. I have a tweeting team. I actually have a Teddy tweeting team now where Rob put it together. With two other guys
from Ian Mackey,
and I got one other guy too when Ian's not available.
Oh, the new that's Rob's new guy, Brennan.
Yeah, Brennan. So I got Brennan and I got Ian and I got Rob. So I'm in good hands. I control the tweeting universe right now. I control it, and so one of the tweets I sent up before the fight was that I believe that whoever makes the first mistake first will lose. And I believe Holland made a mistake. I believe that he took his eyes off the ball for a second and allowed during that second for Chimaev to get into him. And it basically was over once he did. So he paid for that mistake of conscious, that of mental mistake of just for a second taking things for granted and thinking he had a second to get into it. And he didn't. He had to be ready as soon as the referee said go. And so I think that's what started it. Probably at the end of the day was really important. Again, strategic move, smart move, I believe, by Chimaev doing that. And he is so... I always talk about this with the great fighters, Ken. Yeah, they got great talent. Yeah, they developed that great talent. But they're smart. They're not just tough. Yeah, they're tough, but they're smart. The ones that separate themselves, the greatest, they're smart. And he's smart. He's technically sound. He's smart. What I just described him doing is smart. It's intelligent. And I think that's a big part of his game that people probably overlook when they see him because of the physical abilities that he has. That comes to the forefront because that's what you walk away saying, oh my God, what a strong guy, what a fast guy, what a monster. But he's a smart son of a gun. Very dangerous now, obviously. I already said it. I think he wins the welterweight title if he can make the weight and he can make it properly. But you can't depend on him. So I don't know what they do because you don't know what he's going to do. It would be pretty interesting if he did move up to Adesanya because you got two different styles there. That would be pretty damn interesting. Would be interesting to see him fight Usman or Edwards. Yes, no doubt about it. First, Edwards has to get past Usman again if he can. I don't know. That's going to be a tough one. And then when that settles, we'll see. But the guy is another star, is born in the UFC, no doubt about that.
I don't think they give him a title shot next, but I would love to see him earn his title shot at 170 by fighting someone like a Colby Covington. That'd be an interesting fight. Or any of the guys at 185, to be honest.
Yeah,
Paulo
I think
Costa,
he got to get another one before
Vettori.
he gets a title fight, probably. And
at least at 185, before he's going to get a title shot there against Adesanya, he's definitely going to have to fight one of those top contenders. And man, that is the friggin' tough guy. I mean, they're all tough, obviously, but man, going up a little bit in weight and fighting some of those guys that are, kind of that next tier below Adesanya, there's some tough guys up there. And at 170, I mean, they're so competitive. It's just like there's no layups at that top level for any of those guys.
No, 100% right. There are no layups at all. And listen, when you go into the UFC, you do it Dana White's way, which is his way or the highway. And there are very few. I don't know if there's any. So there's levels of it. I get it, of toughness, levels of how the degree of toughness the fights are, but they're all tough. They're all tough. You're not getting any salami. They're all tough.
No soft touch.
Yeah, you're not. You're really not. It's not like in the old days in boxing where you go to different towns and you bring your own music. The old timers would say, you bring your own sheet music to get an easy one and build the record a little bit, get a little rest. But these are all tough. That's the name of the game. That's again, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but that's why they passed boxing. People don't like it. Too bad. Boxing is my life, but I got to be honest. That's why they passed it when it comes to the numbers, on television week in and week out. I'm not talking about when you have a monster boxing fight. That still tops it. When you have a monster fight, whether it's with a Canelo or whether it's with a Fury and that's different. But as far as the regular numbers, yeah, they're outdoing boxing because boxing puts too many mismatches on. Week in and week out. And speaking about a monster fight. Listen, it's happening too late. We know that. But people could be chomping at the bit to still see it with Canelo and Triple G the third coming up. And we just had the interview with Triple G. If you missed it, go and look go and look where you got to look on our YouTube station, I guess, in the archives, whatever. It's there. It was a good interview. It was a very good interview. I thought just a very honest. As Triple G fights in the ring honest, he talks honest. Very open, honest, insightful interview. And we have Thursday, we have the fight plan coming up with Triple G and Canelo. So I would say people enjoy it. I think you're going to enjoy it. Sometimes it helps you a little bit with your betting. Don't bet. Bet with your head. Don't bet over it. Gotta say that, but go to my bookie if you're inclined to go to my bookie. Go to my bookie, watch the fight plan on Thursday, and maybe it helps you a little bit.
And if you go to MyBookie, please go to mybookie.ag. Use the promo code ATLAS, ATLAS, and they'll give you 50% of whatever you deposit for the first time. So if you deposit $2,000, they'll give you another $1,000 on top of that. Please don't bet $2,000 if you've only got $3,000 in your bank account. Be responsible. It goes without saying. Anything, drinking, have a drink. Don't have 20. Do your thing. But if you're gonna bet, go to MyBookie and let them know we sent you. It helps us a lot, and we appreciate it. MyBookie.ag. Use the promo code
And subscribe,
Atlas.
Please subscribe. You guys are all out there viewing us. A couple of weeks ago, we had 400,000, 300,000, maybe it's 400 now, views in a week, which was just incredible. And I can't tell you how much we appreciate you. But subscribe too. Subscribe. Tell your friends. Subscribe. It helps. We need it. It's important. If we're going to keep doing this, subscribe. Thank you.
Yep, that's it. As my kids would say, smash that subscribe button. Let's get to the main event. Nate Diaz. Did you have anything else on Chimaev?
No, I think that's enough. Listen, he's a dangerous man. There's a dangerous man. Like the great commentator, he was a great basketball player too. What's his name? He used to do he does a lot of the NBA games. Used to do them with Marv Albert. He played for St. John's, I think, and then he played for the Knicks. He's a guard. Very good guy, and does a really good job as a color analyst. And he would always have his little signature thing. I'm trying to remember his name. I bet you Rob or one of you could find it. He's a color analyst for TNT. I don't know if it's TNT or maybe not TNT, but for one of the networks. And he's really good. Mark, what's his name? His name's Mark.
Mark Jackson.
Mark Jackson, really good.
Or John Starks?
No, it's Mark John. John Starks is great, and he comes to my charity foundation all the time, and he's a great man. But no, this is Mark Jackson, and he always says when something's going on in a game, "Mama, there goes that man again."
That's a good one.
and that's kind of like all I could say about Mama, there goes that man again. He's a dangerous man.
And thank you for reminding me about the foundation dinner. Guys, anyone, to all the people that email me questions with like small novel attached about why I should ask Teddy a question, here's your chance to ask him in person. The Thursday before Thanksgiving, we'll all be in attendance at the Dr. Atlas Foundation dinner in Staten Island. Everyone's welcome. Please come and support a good cause. And to your point, Teddy, maybe I can ask my friend Reggie Miller if he'd be down to come and meet with us. Maybe he's working in New York. Reggie Miller's a good man. All right, let's get to the main event.
Great clutch player, one of the great players of all time. And boy,
you should see this guy.
He put a knife into the Knicks many times.
You got to see Reggie Miller ride a friggin' mountain bike, Teddy, and I'm not kidding. He's like winning races.
Well, he's a wiry guy. He's a wiry guy, and I'm not.
You see that guy at like 6'5" on a mountain bike tearing down. Mountain bike is very technical. You have to really know what you're doing, or you'll just get destroyed. But man, that guy is good, and he works hard. I used to see him. I'd be running, he'd be riding his bike. But you know, when you're going in the trails, you're basically going around the same pace because it's super steep. But we had some great conversations in the mountain trails. The only two lunatics out there, but he is a friggin' athlete, man. That guy is good at everything. But main event. So Nate Diaz gets Chimaev, can't make weight, so they get right off the bench Tony Ferguson ready to go. Credit to Tony Ferguson for jumping in there. And the only disappointing thing here was I like it when Nate Diaz has bad blood with the opponent and he's nasty to them leading up to the fight. But with Tony Ferguson, they were shaking hands at the weigh-in. Mutual respect. Big time. And it was an interesting dynamic to see Nate Diaz not talking crap and hating someone. I mean, he's still talking a little, but it wasn't as mean-spirited as when he really wants to kill somebody. But yeah, very
but two guys,
heavy.
Ken, two guys past their prime. That we always put out.
Very much
we X-ray this stuff. We put out what other people don't put out. Two guys past their prime, whether you like to hear it or not. Two guys that are sharp one, tethered a little bit, and you can see it in their performances.
Big time.
And listen, there's still two great icons in the sport. They're two great warriors, and they still know how to behave like warriors. But they're definitely. You know, they're into the twilight of their career, maybe a little bit more. So, but the first thing I tweeted out was when Diaz walked into the cage, it was like watching Mick Jagger at the Garden walking into a stage with the same kind of crowd reaction. Really, it really was. I mean, the crowd loves him, and I think as far as breaking the fight down, early on they both showed what you just touched on. They showed their admiration, their respect for each other, but I also think they showed, again, they're a little weathered. These are weathered athletes and fighters, but I think they also showed their experience, that they were both being careful and conservative. I gave the first round to Diaz. Honestly, I need to add this, as I said, that they're both. They're both guys that have been, as I said, diminished, shop one a little bit, but still legendary. Similar styles in a way. I felt that they're both awkwardly clever with their herky-jerky movements that they use to set up opportunities, to create opportunities. I thought he was winning the fight as it proceeded, and that I think I even tweeted this. That I felt his pressure and his volume, punching, would start to make the difference, and it did. It did make a difference. Also, his conditioning. Don't forget, he prepared and he trained for a 5-round fight, while Ferguson prepared for a 3-round fight. So I think that's worth mentioning, and also, I think that I have to also say, if I'm going to say that Diaz prepared more for a wrestling camp, as he said. I'm sure he did some striking, even though he might not admit to it. He did some preparation for that. But he prepared more for a wrestling camp, thinking he was fighting Chimaev than a striking. And, of course, once it got changed to Ferguson, it was going to be more of a striking match, which it turned out to, not either guy could go on the floor real well. But as it turned out to be a strike. So I think it's fair to mention that, too, that, Ferguson was at a disadvantage training for a 3-round out of 5. Diaz trained for 5, but also Diaz was preparing more for wrestling than it turned out to be striking. I thought I thought that finally the pressure and the volume rainstorm of punches, if you will, by Diaz just finished the former great champion. I think some of the unconventional tactics, I tweeted this too, of Diaz like stepping and walking away and leaning on the ropes and talking to people outside the crowd or whatever he was doing, and then coming back to throw a punch and a kick once in a while. I think it reminded me of the great Jersey Joe Walcott, who was heavyweight champion of the world, where he used to do that stuff. And Rob's going to try to get a compilation of some of that up. But he used to just walk away. He adjusts his trunks, and then all of a sudden try to catch you by surprise. So I saw the similarities. Another thing I obviously played into the fight was there was a lot of really damaging kicks to the shins in that fight. Really damaging.
Tony's shin was busted open right immediately. Gushing blood, like all down his foot and everything. So he, clearly they had made contact. Some of the guys were speculating. I think DC or Rogan was speculating that maybe he had damaged it prior to the fight and then it got opened up. But you could see when it happened, Diaz checked the kick and it just split his shin open.
Yeah,
bad.
No, shows you how tough these guys are. Oh my goodness. Really. Beyond human sometimes.
Can you imagine if you bang, you know how much it hurts when you bang your shin? You imagine you walking around your house, you bang your shin against a chair or something and it's bleeding like that, how bad that would hurt. And this guy's you wouldn't even know.
Well, they prepare for it. They prepare for it.
For sure.
Obviously with striking on their shins to build that bone up. To actually, that's part of the Muay Thai training. I know that much. But sometimes, Ken, sometimes the stars, I touched on this a little bit earlier, but sometimes the stars line up perfectly. Maybe it's fate, maybe it's destiny, but it sure lined up great for Diaz. Switching opponent. We both touched on this from Chimaev to Ferguson. So it was the last fight on his contract with UFC, and you just couldn't get a better scenario, a better script to walk off into the sunset with that legendary career. If he walks off, now he already talked about, it sounds like he's leaving UFC, but he's going to go into some other ventures in the fight world, and who knows? Look, if you had to guess, you don't have to be the Mason Kreskin. You could probably figure that he's maybe thinking about boxing and maybe thinking about a Jake Paul fight. We'll get more into that later with Jake Paul, that he's going to fight the legendary Anderson Silva. But maybe after that fight, if of course Jake Paul was to win, maybe that's where Nate Diaz is heading, or when he's saying...
I've also heard some speculation, Teddy, that he might be thinking about starting his own promotion type event that puts on jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, and boxing events.
That makes sense with a legendary name like him and the following that he's got. Whatever it is, he's gonna go off into another direction with the fighting for a minute anyway. But you couldn't get a better send-off and scenario, really, than switching the opponent to Ferguson. He walks off like the legend, that he is. And as far as looking to do something in the way we just talked about, a crossover fight, whatever, he deserves that big payday. I hope he gets it. Whatever he can get, at this point in his career before he finishes up, he deserves as big a payday as he could possibly get. So it was reminiscent a little bit. I teach you earlier about Tom Brady, but it was a little reminiscent of how Tom Brady walked off into the sunset until he came back into the sun. But he walked off into the sunset, leaving New England after all those years, all those Super Bowls, all that success. And then he goes to Tampa Bay, first year, takes that team, Super Bowl, wins the Super Bowl. I mean, perfect spot to walk off to the sunset. You can't write that stuff in Hollywood better. And then, but he comes back, of course, because a lot of times they got to come back. That's how they identify themselves. That's, to them, that's how they stay relative. They can't keep doing it. Sometimes they do it too long. Brady, maybe he'd be an exception to the rule. I don't know. I get it from Brady to the point where he thinks he still has something left. I don't want to leave too early, and then regret it and say, oh, it's too late now. I should have stayed another year. But you don't know. That stuff is really hard to time when all of a sudden somebody gets old. But we've seen great ones. Yeah, not too many walk off at the right time. Some stay too late. We'll see what happens with Brady. We'll see what happens with Diaz. But again, the stars lined up really, really, really perfect for him, Ken.
Yeah, excellent send-off for Nate. I'm sure he's feeling good about that. You want to go through these? You want to talk through these undercard fights before we switch to boxing? I know there was some good ones, and I know you want to hit some of them. Want me to just rattle through them? I'll start with the Johnny Walker and Cutelaba fight.
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. All right, we'll start with the Brazilian. Johnny Walker always brings the excitement. By the way, side note, I don't know how accurate this is, but I saw a bunch of videos circulating on social media. Basically, John Kavanagh, his coach, says that they get kicked out of backstage. After he wins the fight, they say, hey, guys, we got to clear everyone out here before the main event. And they were like, hey, can we at least stay back here and watch the fight on the TV? And they allegedly, who knows what's true, but according to John Kavanagh, they said, no, shoot him out. They literally have video of Johnny Walker barefoot in a full UFC kit, just his shorts, and his gloves are still on, walking back into the casino where he's staying after the fight. So if he didn't get kicked out, that would be quite a publicity stunt to say that you did kicked out if you hadn't in fact been kicked out. But that was just an interesting aside, like no shoes, walking through the lobby of a casino right from his fight with his gloves on. Wow. So interesting dynamic.
Yeah, very interesting. He had been on a bad losing streak, so he was the underdog against the Hulk, Cutelaba. And
yeah, and Johnny Walker gets the win via rear naked choke in the first round.
Yeah, Cutelaba.
What'd you think?
As I said, he was the favorite, but the UFC, that can be a graveyard for favorites. I think we all learned that. Kind of like Saratoga Racetrack, when the favorites like the Great Secretariat were beat. That's a graveyard for, at least they call it the graveyard for favorites. So a little similar to that.
And to your point, Walker was 1-3 coming into this fight.
Yeah, so this was a big one. This was a crossroads, if you will, for him, I think, for his career. Needed to get back on a winning streak. I tweeted before the match that Walker would need good technique to deal with the strength and aggression of Cutelaba, and he did just that. He survived early and then brilliantly and technically got the job done to get the big win. So I said I covered fast, so that's fast.
Yeah, the one quick thing I just want to point out. Rob said that apparently Dana addressed the Walker situation at the press conference and basically said it was COVID protocols that guys have to leave after their fight, and said basically like Johnny's story of it was BS, that he had time to, like, he could have changed and got out, but that he couldn't basically hang around because of COVID protocols, which may be the case. I can't imagine the UFC kicking you out in your friggin' bare feet.
No, I mean, it don't sound right. And I would give him the benefit of the doubt and say what Rob just gave us, that info that was COVID protocol. And listen, also, maybe things were a lot more stringent and tighter after the scare they had with the press conference.
Good point.
I mean, come on. That could have been bad. that could have been dangerous for everybody, for fans, for employers, employees, everybody, fighters. So the next one, what's the next one, Ken?
Irene Aldana versus Macy Chiasson. This was an interesting finish, really interesting. Aldana was on her back, hit Macy with an up kick, but she put a heel right into the liver, it appeared, of Macy, and she went down. I mean, she went down so automatic that the ref jumped in, maybe thought it looked almost like she had been hit with a low blow because the way she went down. But when you get hit with that crippling body shot in boxing or get kicked in the UFC, it's like it's immediately just paralyzes your body. So she went down. It looked like she might have been injured, and the ref's asking her what's wrong, and she's like, "Oh, I got kicked." And on the replay, you could clearly see that she put a perfectly placed heel kick from her back.
Yeah, I tweeted that. That was what was impressive. She's in a defensive posture. Aldana, had lost the second round. She won the first round, lost the second round. Looked like she might lose the next one. She's on the floor. She's in a defensive position. She's kicking, flailing a little bit to get some room, to keep her off her, to keep Chiasson off her. And then she has the wherewithal, the mindset, and the ability to place a heel kick from that position, and it was no accident. I mean, she placed it. It was really magnificent. It was brilliant.
Beautiful.
It was brilliant to be able to control yourself in an uncontrolled environment, to be defensive 1 second, yet think in an offensive manner when you had to. And again, in that awkward position, it really, I guess she trains for it, because that was no accident. It was executed brilliantly. Very rare to see it. I believe, from what I read, that it was only the third up kick to the liver in UFC history. That's
wow.
That shows you how rare and how unique that was what we saw. So I tweeted early that Aldana was going to look to land the right hand when they were striking versus the southpaw, and she did, and she had success doing it, and then her success really forced am I pronouncing it right? Chiasson?
Macy Chiasson. Macy.
Oh, I'm glad you don't know either. What the hell? But I'd say Chiasson.
You would think after listening to them repeated 100 times that I would remember it, but there's just a lot of names.
I'd say Chiasson. I think it might have been. Yeah, I might have heard the commentator saying Chiasson. But whatever. She was magnificent too, and she got forced when she was getting hit those right hands in the striking. It forced Chiasson to go for a takedown, and it got her in trouble in the first round, where Aldana, really had a real strong finish, in the first round, and had her in some pretty serious trouble with an arm bar and a ground and pound. But then Chiasson, what am I saying? Chiasson?
Macy.
Macy. Yeah, what did I decide to say? Chiasson or Chiasson?
Chiasson,
yeah. Chiasson, she turned it around. She turned it around in the second round and took charge. Matter of fact, went back to the mat grappling and had Aldana in trouble. So it was an even fight going into the third. That's what made that up kick so dramatic and so important, because I felt it was an even fight. At least that's the way I had it. And then I tweeted that Aldana needs to get back to striking and landing right hands, but she pulled it off. She wound up on the mat again, and with her back to the wall, in this case, her back to the canvas, she landed that unique kick. So it really was something to... Just the suddenness of it, you didn't know what happened. At first, I thought there was an injury. And I think the commentators thought that too, that there was an injury. Then, of course, we got it sorted out. We saw the replay, and we saw what it was. And again, to be able to think that calmly under that kind of pressure and land that kick was pretty magnificent.
Yeah, it was excellent. Now let's get to, for me, one of the more fun fights of the night. Heavyweights. This kid.
No, let's go.
This kid.
Let's finish with Lee. Let's finish up with Lee and Rodriguez.
Oh, sorry. You know what? I forgot to write that one in my notes. You're right. Apologies. Yi Jinglang and Daniel Rodriguez. They go the full 3 minutes to a decision. Very close. Split decision. Goes to Daniel Rodriguez. How'd you like that one?
Yeah, getting this fight. Lee was looking as Adana was in her fight to land the right hand versus the southpaw, but she should have also, or he should have also, I believe, used the jab more, especially as the fight went on, and no one really was taking charge to separate in that fight a lot. It wasn't a barn burner, but it was a very strategic, very well-fought fight. Nobody wanted to give the other the edge, the advantage by making a mistake. And it's the kind of fight, quite frankly, where when it's that close and there's not a lot of separation or rounds to really clearly separate somebody, whoever uses their jab more usually gets the edge. And Lee did land the right hand, as I had tweeted he was looking to do, and he could do. But again, I thought he could have jabbed a little more. Both fighters were being careful, as I said, not to overcommit and not to leave themselves open. They were cautiously aggressive, as I sometimes say, in spots. I thought Lee was probably up 2-0, honestly, going into the third round, Ken. But they were all close rounds. And I thought that Rodriguez won the last round with his jabbing. In a close fight, as I said, when neither fighter really has a big lead and there's not much to separate them, I think whoever decides to jab is probably going to put himself in a good position. But even though I had Lee winning 2-1, but as I said, it was close. So who am I to argue? The decision went to Rodriguez.
Yeah, well, like I said, let's get to the one, for me, one of the more fun fights of the night, Chris Barnett and Jake Collier. Chris Barnett always brings excitement. Man, that kid is happy. I want to be that happy. He just looks like he's having fun all the time. These two big dudes got after it in the first round. My God, they were throwing with everything. I mean, just a fun barn burner of a fight at times. Obviously, they all have some technical skills to get into the UFC, but at times it looked like two big guys brawling in a parking lot outside of a club in Boston. But Chris Barnett eventually catches him. Jake Collier shoots for a takedown. I think he was starting to get tired. They both looked exhausted after the first round. But Collier shot for a takedown. Barnett stuffed it, scrambled around him, took his back, and eventually submitted him with punches, just got on top of a mountain and was just raining down punches and elbows. And, oh my God, it was entertaining to say the least. But he not before he got the win, but not before Jay Collier busted him up real good. I mean, his eye was a mess. It was pouring blood, all swollen up. But how'd you like that one?
Yeah, it was reminiscent back in the day. There was a boxer, Butterbean, and he fought on USA television. He used to build mobile homes, if my memory serves me correctly, in Alabama.
He's from Alabama.
He was quite a character, big, heavy guy, and his bald head. And he was entertaining. He was jovial, just like Barnett. And am I saying it right, Barnett?
Barnett, yeah,
Barnett.
Yep.
And he just a likable guy and a tough guy. And Butterbean was, like I said, he was a fan favorite. And then you even had, if you go back, I like to be a historian, and And for the fans out there that are familiar with the history of this great sport, if you go back to the 40s, I guess it was the 40s, where the great Joe Louis was champion, there was a fighter named Tony Two-Ton Galento, and he was quite a character. He was a big guy. He used to brag about basically training on beer and hot dogs and maybe spaghetti and meatballs. But he had a good left hook. He did. And believe it or not, he fought Joe Louis for the heavyweight title. He dropped Louis with a left hook, but then he got destroyed. But he was a legitimate tough guy, a legitimate fighter. So there's a precedent for these guys. And Barnett, you got to love him. You really do have to love the guy. He's tremendous. He's tough. He's legitimate. Yeah, he's heavy. He's all those things. But he was really taking a beating in this fight. And then he came back, and he did what he had to do to Collier. You just gotta love the guy. His toughness, his genuineness. He's a genuine character. He loves doing what he loves. He got up there and he said, I love the UFC. I mean, how many guys are going to say that? I mean, it's a tough sport. You're taking punches. I love the UFC. And then he's going off drinking 2 beers at a time, as I said, that Two-Ton Tony used to do, and Butterbean and those guys. So his signature move at the end is to do that flip. I would pay just to see that because it's fun. He does that flip in the ring where he lands on his butt. I mean, it's
so funny.
It's his redemption, or I would say it's his cannonball
version.
Yeah, his version of what people normally do in a swimming pool when they do a cannonball, right? When somebody a little heavy goes and jumps into a swimming pool and does a cannonball. That's his version to do the dry cannonball. I think he should actually trademark that and call it the Barnett Dry Cannonball. He's great, Chris Barnett. He's the new man filling the shoes, like I said, of Butterbean and Two-Ton Tony. Just love him. You're not gonna, obviously, he's never gonna be asked to pose in one of those men's health journals, right? He's that's not happening.
That's for sure.
But he is, again, I think it deserves being said. He's not just a funny guy. He's a tough guy, and fun to watch. And like I said, you get that bonus of the dry cannonball. So yeah, he's great. And the other guy I wanted to talk about, Ken, was it was on the prelims, Gelton Almeida. If you're looking for the next monster, like Chimaev, you might not have to look much past him. I doubt you're going to see him in prelims anymore. I think he's going to be moved to the main cards, but he's a destructive force. If you like that, if you like destructive forces, I think he...
Yeah, he got a rear naked choke on Anton Turkai
who was
in the first
minute,
round.
Listen, he was a last-minute substitute because the original opponent fell out. But still, Takhailov is 8-1. He's out of Sweden. Yep. He's a legitimate guy. He destroyed him. He's officially on the radar now as a dangerous man. Again, there's a lot of dangerous men in the UFC. He's another one to look out for. I was very impressed. And that's why I made a note that I just really felt we had to bring that to the fans. Even if we do it real fast as we did appropriately, I thought we needed to do that.
Yeah, I agree. All right, for the boxing fans, lots to cover in boxing. Not necessarily a busy weekend, but we have a big one coming up, obviously. Like Teddy said earlier, we've got the Triple G and Canelo Part 3 fight plan on Thursday. You definitely want to watch that, especially if you're planning on making a wager. See what Teddy has to say about what to expect from both guys. And once again, go to mybookie.ag, use the promo code ATLAS, and we'd appreciate it if you're going to bet, of course. If you're not going to bet, don't do us any favors by making bets just to help us. If you want to do that, you can subscribe to Athletic Greens, the all-in-one daily drink that I use every single day, and Teddy's been using it on his weight loss journey. Go to athleticgreens.com/Atlas, and they'll give you 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. Again, this is essentially a daily vitamin in a green drink formula. Super easy. I mix it with about a cup of water, shake it up in the shaker it comes with, and shoot it down. It's automatic. It's just the same as brushing my teeth in the morning. I take that Athletic Greens, get the day started, making sure that you've hit all your vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and vegetable and fruit servings in one day. And join Teddy on the weight loss. And Teddy, you were saying earlier that you're stuck at 28 pounds, but if you have any issues getting down to 30, let me know, and I'll be happy to jump on Zoom and give you one of your patented fireman speech and remind you that this is easy work for you and no one's going to punch your face. Get in there and it's all recognized. Unlike the boxing, which is 75 to 80% mental, this is 100% mental. Make the choice just not to eat anymore.
Believe me,
when it's full.
I'll go on a fast before I have to make that phone call. But no, I appreciate
come on,
it.
man.
I'm joking.
We're a team.
I'm joking.
supporting
I
you.
appreciate the support, the love, the care. I'm going to get it done on my own. I will get it done, hopefully, God willing, by next, and me willing, because God only helps those who help themselves. And I will help myself make those last 2 pounds in the last week. And
you got this.
I think we have to finish up. I believe we got one more with the Jake Paul.
We're going to hit some... we got some boxing to talk about. First, let's talk about... unfortunate turn of events. Obviously, we've passed on our condolences regarding the Queen. Very sad. But like I said, she's had a good run. I always prefer when people die at an old age to celebrate the life they had rather than focus on the fact that they're not here anymore. It's going to happen to all of us at some point. It's inevitability. We all hope we could have a 96-year run. Good for her. She looked vibrant up until the last day, at least the last time she was seen in public. So condolences to the Brits. But unfortunately for Claressa Shields and her opponent, Savannah Marshall, they had to reschedule their bout. That was a tough one because, I don't know if they officially weighed in, but certainly they were getting ready to weigh in. It was either the day before or the day of weigh-ins or the day after. But that's a tough journey to go through the whole camp, get down to weight cutting, even if it's the day before, to prepare yourself mentally, physically, get into that place, and then to have the fight canceled and rescheduled for a month and a half away. I think they're doing it mid-late October next month. But unfortunate turn of events. But that looked to be a real good female card. Michaela Meyer was fighting on the undercard in the co-main. But that fight, that main event, I was actually looking forward to that one. Claressa Shields and Savannah Marshall. Lots of bad blood, to say the least. Oh, my God, they hate each other. It looked to be a very competitive fight. Savannah Marshall beat her in the amateurs. I think might have been the only person to ever beat Claressa Shields before she went on to win 2 gold medals and a bunch of world titles. I also give Claressa Shields a lot of credit for having the guts to go and try MMA. She's had a handful of fights over in the, I think the PFL. And, she looked like what you would expect someone with no grappling experience to look like. But it takes a lot of courage to get in there and try something new. And, so for that, I give her a lot of credit. But unfortunate to have to cancel the fight. Was looking forward to it. You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do, because I don't know that many people bring this up, but first of all, I want to put a little shout out to the promoter for Claressa Shields, Demetrius Salita. He's a former fighter from Brooklyn, New York, and he's doing a good job promotion. He's doing a good job promoting her, and he's got a good man as his lawyer, David Berlin, who's my man too.
David's a good
with
guy.
My charity foundation, always there with Keith Sullivan and my daughter Nicole, doing all the charity work with the foundation, all pro bono legal work. So appreciate the hell out of all of them. And like I said, Dimitri he's one of the good guys in the promotional business. There's not a million of them. There's not even a few of them, quite frankly. But he is one of them. And the thing I want to point out about that being canceled that people might not think of at first glance is it might impact the fight now. the result of the fight, because I don't know what the date's going to be yet. I don't know if they came up with a date. You could look at that while I'm talking. But
I think they said October 15th.
Whatever it is, you have to figure that both the fighters were at peak condition, ready to go when this got canceled. So they had done all their training, probably 2 months worth of training, somewhere about, and they peaked, they got ready. And now all of a sudden, you got a new date. So it's very important. That's got to really be navigated properly with science and with experience and with experienced people, where you got to lay off. A lot of people say, oh no, stay in shape. Well, then you run the risk, a very high risk, of getting stale, getting overtrained. So you have to lay off. That's what I would do. And then you got to figure, how long do you lay off, and then how much do you come back, and how hard do you push it? Do you push it for a week? Do you push it for a few sessions? Do you put, how hard do you push it? Because you already were there. You already did the pushing. So how much more can you do? So you got to figure that. You got to navigate that really the right way. And it's something, if you don't get right, it can impact the results of the fight. So that's a thing that I had to mention, that really it's up to the trainers. They're people. I'm sure they do a great job. I'm sure they have to qualify people there to do it. But that can become an X factor for the rematch of that fight. So I favored Claressa. I called her first fights when she was 16 years old in the Olympics for NBC, because I called 4 Olympics for NBC with Bob Papa, and the first one with the great Marv Albert, and then the other 3 with the great Bob Papa. Some of the greatest people in commentating in any sport there are in the world, and great people too. But I favor Claressa. She's strong, she's physical, she's tough mentally. But it should be an interesting fight. A lot of people liked Marshall going into this fight. So again, we'll see how the rebooting of this, if you will, and the rescheduling of how it might impact this outcome, we'll see. So that's my feeling on that. Go ahead, Ken. We got a couple others.
Next up, Jake Paul announces his fight. He's fighting the Spider, Anderson Silva. And I mean, Jake he's a marketing wizard. Even if you hate this guy, like, he is original. He's creative. He's funny at times. Like, if you don't like him, maybe you don't think he's funny, but I'll tell you, he put together a video clip saying thanks to Dana for being the #1 promoter, because he pulled up old clips of Dana White saying, Jake Paul, you want to fight someone good? Fight Anderson Silva. Oh, he's never going to fight Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva's the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time. He's this, he's that. Jake will never get in there. Well, he's in there. So, credit to Jake Paul. I like Dana. I thought there's no way. Why would you take that fight? That's a tough fight. He beat Cesar Chavez Jr. I mean, look, Cesar Chavez Jr. at his best was a very good fighter. But then obviously he seemed to be struggling with some mental health issues, and never know what you're going to get with him. He can do some really out of the ordinary stuff. But there's no question that he has some talent. And Anderson Silva put it on him pretty good. So Anderson Silva, Jake Paul, I'm interested. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm interested too, but I have to, I got to make certain points here that need to be made from my perspective, from our perspective, from what we do, from the place we are. And not that some people can't figure this out themselves. I'm sure they can, but it's our job to point it out, and my job. Don't forget, Anderson Silva, he's a legend, but he's 47 years old. When does that go sideways? He looked terrific, beating a former champion in Chavez Jr., but let's face it, Chavez Jr. had been losing fights. He had failed a lot of drug tests. He had gone way up in weight, up and down with his weight. He was known to be smoking a lot of weed, drinking, having problems with that, with his life. And I mean, who knows how far removed he was from the guy who once was a pretty solid fighter. Never a great fighter, but good enough to win a title. So there's titles out there. You can pick the right spot. You still got to be able to fight, but you can pick the right spot. You don't have to beat Godzilla to win it. He did win a title. He obviously was nowhere near his father as one of the great fighters of all time. Not just great Mexican fighters of all time, but great fighters of all time. But we don't know how much to really go by with him beating Chavez. But he knows what he's doing in the ring. He definitely does. He's mentally a fighter. He's mentally a tough guy. But he is 47 years old, Silva. He was losing in the MMA, the UFC at the end before he went over to boxing. Hey, listen, he's my favorite, Anderson Silva, as far as from this boxing guy. So I'm not trying to be a UFC expert or MMA expert, but I do my work. I do have my opinion. My opinion is he might be the greatest MMA fighter of all time. At least that's my choice. I know there's others. I know there's guys like John Jones who's still doing it. He's unbelievable. There's George St. Pierre, tremendous. Khabib, who retired 29-0. Amanda Nunes, who's still fighting. Fedor Emelianenko. I have problem with
Fedor Emelianenko.
What Ken said.
Emelianenko.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just
Russian sambo fighter.
I'll just say Fedor. I love Fedor. Of course, there's other legends out there too, in the great world of the MMA and of course the UFC. Again, Silva showed he can box. I'll be watching. I have to watch. There's got some intrigue to it, but again, 47 years old. I think that I've made this point before. We've had Jake on our interview on our air. You should go and watch it. If you didn't see it, you might get a different opinion on him as a human being, as a person. After you watch it, I like him. He does his promotional stuff to make himself the way he's got to make himself, to promote himself, to sell, to make money, all that stuff. But I happen to like him. I give him respect for what he's doing, the way he's doing it. He's respecting the sport. He's going out there and he's doing the best he can. He's training. He took time to train before he jumped into it. And yeah, he's smart. He picks his spots pretty damn good. He picks older MMA fighters who aren't really strikers. He had the basketball player Nate Robinson in the first one. That fight probably never should have been made, but nobody knew at that time. And then they knew, obviously, Jake knocked him out. He's strong. He's got a pretty good right hand. He's still a work in progress, but he picks his spot. I'm not knocking him for it, but he's a businessman. He's smart, and Jake picks his spots really damn good, and he picked this for a reason. Yeah, Silva is 47. He's smaller. Jake gets advantages. He's the golden goose like Canelo. He gets advantages. He's making the money right now in this particular world that he's created, right? Coming from the YouTube and doing this crossover stuff. So he's the guy. And he usually has an advantage of being younger and bigger and physically stronger. He's got those same advantages again. He's younger by a lot, and he's bigger. He usually fights around 190. I believe Anderson fights at about 170. So there's a 20-pound weight difference there. So he's got that advantage. Again, he's fighting a legend. I understand. And people will watch it. And I'll watch it. But he's been smart, and it's not a knock. No more than I knocked Mayweather, who, of course, is a great fighter. But he was smart too, Mayweather, and he's still smart picking his spots, who he's going to fight when he comes out of retirement. I don't know if he ever retired, but when he picks his spots for these exhibitions in Japan or wherever he's doing it, and he gets paid an awful lot of money, I'm sure, to do it. He's smart, he's brilliant, but he picks his spots damn well. And even in boxing, yeah, he fought a lot of good fighters, but he did pick his spots pretty damn well. He's a good manager. Good businessman. That's part of the package. And Jake is a good businessman, a good manager. he thinks he picked another spot, that he picked it well. I'm curious, like a lot of other people out there now, to see if he picked the right spot or if he picked the wrong spot. So I'll pay to watch it and find out. And that's it.
Well, I'm with you there. And last thing, Jake Paul started a trend, and, you know, all these former athletes are getting in there and trying their hand at boxing. The latest to be Le'Veon Bell, who I believe was the Pittsburgh Steeler running back for a while.
He was great running back. And he got forced out of retirement, or he put himself in retirement a little early because he held out on a contract for a year with Pittsburgh. Then he got traded to the Jets, and I don't think it was ever the same after missing a year. And, you know, getting a little older, but great. And just Adrian Peterson, just a great running back. Played for Oklahoma in college, and then went to Minnesota. Great running back.
Adrian Peterson was a friggin' superstar
in
the NFL. Oh
my
God, he was good. Yeah. Well, they got in the ring and decided to try their hand at boxing. And as they always say, Teddy, we don't play boxing. Well, Le'Veon Bell hit Adrian Peterson with a beautiful right hand and buckled his leg, dropped him badly. He got up, but he was on Queer Street. The ref waved it off. Le'Veon Bell gets the knockout over Adrian Peterson. What'd you think?
You know, again, I have a different take than most people, and this is what I want to put out there. Peterson was older. He was the older guy. Bell was a little younger. Both great athletes, physical guys. Like you said, you don't play boxing. You got to know what the hell you're doing in there. It's not just about physicality. But the first thing I want to say is that Bell knew what he was doing. I only saw the clip. I'm not going to pretend to have seen more. I'd have to see more before I went further with my opinion. But from what I saw, he set up that right hand beautifully. First, he jabbed to the body, set him up to the body, made him think, drop his eye level, Peterson's eye level to the body, pay attention to the body, and then he made like a little suggestive move, like a little twitch with the right hand, like playing with it, and then a little suggestive move, like he was gonna go downstairs to the body again, and bang! Instead, he throws it up top where he wanted to throw it to the head, and he got the knockout.
I'm going to guess he's listened to your rap on Jersey Joe and Ezra Charles.
He did a great job. Maybe watch some of my dynamic striking.
Striking, where you can learn all the punches if you want. If you do have a celebrity boxing match coming up and you don't have the wallet to hire someone like Teddy, you can get the dynamic striking video package and learn everything you need to know in theory, and then it's up to you to put it into practice. But you should definitely check out dynamicstriking.com. Look for the Teddy Atlas series on boxing. He teaches you everything you need to know.
I appreciate that, Ken. And, you know, they are good. I got to tell you, I know it's terrible to
they're excellent.
Talk about yourself.
Seriously,
I know
you can learn
it's not good
manners.
I know, but they're good.
No, you put a lot of effort into it. To not promote them would be insane. They should be promoted because, look, nothing's going to substitute from getting in the ring with Teddy, but if you want to learn from one of the greatest minds in the combat sports industry, here it is. For a couple bucks, you can get on there and get a personalized tutorial and all the different punches. I think, what do you have, 14 different jabs?
There's 15 instructional fight videos. There's inside fighting, there's body punching. They're all different, specific things. Peekaboo style, fundamentals, the world of counter punching, the world of defense, all designated specifically for those specific areas. And at the end of the day, it shows you everything you got to know, really, if you're going to try to be a good fighter. But there's other ways to do it too. Get a good trainer. But if they do make sense, and I do feel proud of them, because I wouldn't put it out there. I wouldn't put my name to it if I didn't think that was what it needs to be to teach somebody the right way. To finish up on the breakdown of this Bell fight with Peterson, this is the interesting thing right here. Customato would always say to me, Ken, that you could kind of get an inkling for somebody's personality and their temperament, what they are, by watching their style of fighting. Very interesting. Very interesting. Like Muhammad Ali, his style of fighting. Very intellectual guy, very fast talker, very smooth talker, very witty guy. He fought very fast. I know he had the athletic ability to do it and the body to do it. I get it. But your temperament also tells you how you're going to use your abilities. And he used them in a slick way, in a smart way. Joe Frazier, a guy that didn't mince a lot of words. Serious guy, came from a tough background, tough upbringing. Very, deliberate, no-nonsense kind of guy. Get to the point. Well, he got to the point. He came in with left hooks. Joe Frazier was smoking. He wasn't joking. He had that kind of style. That was, again, consistent with his temperament, with his personality. So I saw that. And I think if you look at other fighters, I could do a whole freaking, I think, interesting episode on going through the annals of boxing. Maybe we'll talk to Rob Woodou someday. Go the annals of boxing and matching up the physical abilities, the physical styles of some of the great fighters and their personalities, how they matched up, how they were similar, how they were intertwined. And I saw that with these two athletes. People are going to say, Teddy, tell us. I hope they're going to say, where did you see it? Well, we didn't see it. What did you see that was similar in their personalities, in the way they were going to box, in the way that they went about their football careers and all? Well, the style in football of Bell, very smart, very cerebral. He would stop. He had a very unique style. Maybe the first guy to ever run this way, where he would stop, he'd look for the hole, then he'd go the other way. Maybe in some ways, I think the greatest runner I ever saw was Barry, what was his name? He played for
Barry Sanders
for Detroit Lions. He retired too early. He didn't like things, what was going on with the coach, and he retired too early. He shouldn't have. He would have been the all-time Russian leader of all time. I don't care what you say. He would have wound up being, instead of Emerson, Emerson Smith, the great
Emmitt
Smith, the great Dallas Cowboy running back, great. But Barry Sanders was even, I thought, different style, but he would have been the greatest as far as the amount of yards and everything. And look, if Jim Brown didn't retire young, he might still be running. That guy was pretty damn special, pretty powerful, and unbelievable as a running back. Maybe the greatest running back of all time. But I loved Barry Sanders, but I love when Bell was at his best. He would stop, he'd see the hole, he'd look the other way, then he'd go that way. He tiptoed through the hole, then he'd explode. Again, very different style, very unique. Yeah, I know the physical component of it, but it wasn't really so much about the pound and ground. It was more cerebral, more with his eyes, more with, his instinctual abilities to instinctively look for a hole and then pop through it, where Peterson was more Joe Frazier. He was more ground and pound. He was explosive. He had all those abilities, but he would crash through that hole fast and powerful. And so when they got in the ring, I wasn't shocked. And that's the point I want to make here, that I think is a little bit of a unique point, where you just see two guys that are football players. Now they're in a boxing ring, and people say, okay, that's it. One guy won, that's it. But I think that you can connect their styles and their temperaments from football, where I saw that cerebralness in Bell. I saw him as I just described. He jabbed to the body. He set up Peterson, thinking it was going to go downstairs, and then set him up in a very coy, smart way with the right hand to the head. The way he ran, the way he looked for holes in the NFL. And where Peterson was more about, I'm going to go get you. It's more about strength, and I'm going to run over you. I'm going to pound you. And it came up second in the boxing ring, where quite often you do come up second if it's only about physicality. It does have to be with the mix of cerebralness at certain levels, of being smart, having technique, encompassing all those things. So I just wanted to add that to what was just a video clip. I get it, but I thought there was more you could take away from it if you looked at it in those ways.
Yeah, love it. That was we covered a lot. One thing I forgot to tell you at the top of the show, I ran a race this weekend up in Maine.
Oh wow, what happened?
I won
No
a
surprise.
half marathon. It was called Hell on the Hill. I went up there with my friend Desiree Linden, who won the Boston Marathon 2018. And to be honest with you, I think Des is such a nice, humble woman. She probably could have destroyed me. But basically, we went out hard together, the two of us up and down this hill, super steep, 65 times up and down. And at some point, she took a little break. I think she almost like bowed out to be like, oh, Ken, you go ahead and win it. Being the Boston Marathon champ, basically the Super Bowl of marathons, she was probably taking a break. But it was fun, and it was nice just to meet the people. And the point of the story is, met some awesome people that are big fans of the show. This was like an endurance type event, and an eclectic crowd, not super competitive, more about the experience of being out there and doing something outside of your comfort zone. The people were super kind, but big fans of the show, and I can't tell you how many people. Tell Teddy I said hello. So on behalf of everyone who was at Hell on the Hill, hello to Teddy and Rob. Love the show. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. We always appreciate hearing such things from good people, and appreciate everybody out there that watches the show, cares about it. And I'm proud of you again for keeping that winning streak going. And even if you didn't win, I'm proud of you because you give your all. And that's all you can ask.
Yeah.
That's all you can ask from anybody out there. You know, my grandchildren playing ball and all, give your all. I talk to them. They're just starting to, play like everyone else, the T-ball and all that kind of stuff. And, you don't know if you have a Willie Mays or Mickey Mantle yet. We might. But we have 2 boys and 2 girls. But the most important thing is just, have fun and try. Try hard. You try
That's
to
the best.
You try
That's
to
the
instill
key.
that. Even at an early
That's
age.
it.
My kids are very young. I got a 2.5-year-old, a 3.5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 4.5-year-old. But that's what you try to instill. Try hard. Have fun. Try your best. And that's one thing. You're a winner. And you're great at this running, and you put the work in, and it's paid off for you. And it's tremendous. You're the greatest marathon runner at 50 and over for the Masters class in the world.
Yep.
And that's just, it's beyond impressive. It's tremendous. Rob is not far behind you, even though he's a lot younger. He's a hell of a marathon runner and a hell of an endurance athlete too. But
he's won his last 2.
Yeah,
he won the Malibu Half Marathon, and he won the Huntington Beach Surf City Marathon, the full marathon.
Oh, there it is. And
he's killing it.
And again, I'm not surprised you won, but whether you won or not, I'd still feel the same way about you because I know you would have left it all out there on the hill.
Yep, 2 more weeks. I go to Berlin a week from tomorrow.
Well, good luck. We'll be on that when we get closer, but good luck on that one. And how's the preparation going for that one?
Excellent. I feel like, that feeling when you're right on that razor's edge of like, I don't think I'm overtrained, but I'm as fit as I've ever been. Like now it's time to like dial it back and start to taper into the race. Yeah. But I've done a lot of work, and you just hope you haven't done too much. Now it's just about executing on all the little things.
Listen, I'm going to give you a saying. You want to hear a saying from the old timers in my business? When you got to the point you just described, Ken, they used to say this: "It's all over but the shooting."
That's it.
And you did the hard work already. That's in. You're not going to get in any better shape. You might take away from yourself by overdoing it a little bit, possibly.
Exactly.
But you're not going to get in better. Put it this way: if you're not in top shape now, you're not going to get in top shape. With this amount of time to go. So
you're right.
Do what you know to do, taper back and allow all this great training that you've done already to be salvaged, to be put where it needs to be put, saved, so you stay strong and it's ready for the race.
Yep. Looking forward to getting over there and seeing some of the European fans. A bunch of people have reached out, said they're running as well. So looking forward to seeing all the good people and the fans of the show. We appreciate you guys. Please keep commenting, sharing the links, and please subscribe if you haven't already. And with that, Teddy, I think that's a pretty thorough week of combat sports coverage. You got anything else before we sign off, heading into this Canelo Triple G weekend?
No, just watch, as I said earlier, and as you said, watch the fight plan on Thursday, Triple G and Canelo. Think you're going to enjoy it. If you haven't seen the Triple G interview, it was a couple weeks ago. We had it up. Go and see it. And thank you to everybody. Stay healthy out there. God bless everybody.
Yep, thanks for being with us, guys. We'll talk to you next week and break down the whole Canelo Triple G trilogy. Have a great week, everybody.